Lisa Renee, Compelling Changes. Website, www.energeticsynthesis.com. During the bifurcation cycle, the planetary body is gradually undergoing subatomic shifting in the lower fields of the particle structure, which forces collapse in lower dimensions and rolls them up, as the entities are transited out and the leftover energies merge with the next octave of higher harmonic frequencies. As a result, the point in time and space where the planetary body is located, and the time continuum in which we exist as a collective consciousness, is being moved up the harmonic scale. Therefore, the collective consciousness is also shifting, and the current station of identity that exists in a certain time and space location is also being shifted to better align with the planetary body. That means that many people are undergoing deep and powerful transitions and are intensely impacted by the magnetic changes that redirect how the energy fields, such as ley lines, are aligning to a higher frequency space-time. This acts as a personal trigger event in the future timeline for certain groups of people who will experience radical life changes, moving them into new environments, consciousness transformations, and even exiting this plane entirely. We are at a fork in the road which will compel us into new directions, or exits. During this current planetary transition, we are coexisting within evolutionary stages of accretion of new cosmic frequencies into the planetary matrices. Rather than stay on the planet to integrate those next-generation frequencies, some people and animals have chosen this phase of time to leave. A rebalancing of the magnetic field is occurring, and this changes how we ground into the Earth, how we interface with the Earth, and if we are able to work with the planet, rather than against her, as she rebalances sections of her body. Humanity must remember how to live in harmony with nature, and to coexist in harmony with creation. Those of us on the ascending path have already made this consciousness shift beforehand, while we are coexisting on the planet with many people that are still maintaining the lower energies that descend with the third-dimensional timelines. So the split in the timelines and frequency schism are existing in parallel to each other, yet each person that represents either the upward or downward momentum of the energetic spiral is actually located at a different point in the timeline. Their station of identity is located at a different point in the time-space continuum. Over the past 60 days, the planet entered its annual cycle of increasing the frequency split that exists between the most extreme polarities that coexist within dimensional spaces. The accumulation of progressively increasing frequency being integrated into the overall planetary field is what shifts us into higher frequency dimensions. When the movement into higher dimensions of frequency occurs in the next higher octave level, it creates a great impact in the overall fundamental, base, frequency on Earth. The overall base frequency is also the coordinate location of a fixed point in a time and space field. So when the base frequency changes, so does time and space. This base frequency is comprised from the lowest frequency strings which are resonating in any kind of energy field, whether it is a human aura, or a group aura, organizational energy field, or the multiple layers of energy within the unified planetary field. All of those combined fields of resonating energy are potentially averaged into an overall base frequency. Where the base frequency is resonating is the location at a fixed point in time, which is the value that determines the range of possibilities of that energy field, as a person, place or thing, in the momentum of forces which direct future timelines. The magnetic shift in base tone frequency sets impact the dark matter template in the Earth, which has greatly increased ascension symptoms that put pressure on the physical body. Many people may feel exhausted by the changes that are affecting metabolism and the endocrine system, as well as the nervous system and brain. Magnetic changes that are this pronounced result in experiences of nervous system exhaustion, changes in sleep pattern, disorientation with time bubbles, shifts in metabolic functions, as the body attempts to recover its homeostatic balance in daily functioning. Additionally, as the global brain shifts its magnetic structure, this means our general world perception. Worldviews and values are shifting and many people are being deconstructed and extracted from the collective consciousness space frequency that exists in the 3D. This 3D-based collective energy is what we can observe reflected in the fragmented chaos and severe disconnection that currently dominates the entire worldscape. The quality of frequency reflected from the collective energy field shapes most people's worldviews and belief systems, influences the world perception into a dominate culture, and the dominate culture reinforces values which are reflected in the personal choices that people make. Unless humanity breaks away from the dominate culture of the archontic deception, changes its worldview and starts to make different choices, the overall quality of frequency in that collective field remains stagnant or descends into polarity force explosions. The bifurcation of time is forcing a direction which will accelerate volatile change in people that are energetically stagnant or are connected to the descending forces. This change in the nature of timelines pushes humanity to make choices from the mental attitudes that have been formed from the worldview perception and level of consciousness they have now. Thus, the choice is made between the negative ego layers or the spiritualized higher self, based on which alternate is in control of the overall energetic aura and physical body. Many people are having sudden physical issues that are personal messages being given from their higher self, as a spiritual wake-up call. Many humans on the earth are indifferent to their spiritual growth, or are unable to discern the world of forces that are impacting the environment, as they are exposed to heavy mind control. Therefore, under mind control they are more susceptible to become consubstantial, of the same substance in consciousness, with the imposter spirit forces who use the negative ego to lure people to become complicit and connected with them. As a result, the higher consciousness identities of people have taken the position of spiritual crisis in order to wake up their counterpart on the material plane, which usually appears as sudden and radical lifestyle changes that act as a spiritual catalyst. The body is a harmonic resonator. Whatever consciousness force we identify with, is what we will resonate with, and the same frequency substance is generated into our aura, which creates the personal sphere of consciousness. Whatever energy we hold in our aura, that energy is then brought into the physical realm as a conduit of expression made through the human body. Thus, the higher spiritual consciousness is trying to get people's attention in order to communicate with the spiritual realms, so they can help to increase the base frequency that is in the aura of that person or group. As a person or group identify their own ego, personality to connect with a certain group of collective forces, they become connected with them energetically, thus, aligned to that group consciousness and its mental body schema or mental map. Academic reality, medical reality, atheistic reality, religious reality, etc. all have their own reality bubbles that are formed from the mental map that is generated from the group's consensus or consciousness agreement. Therefore, the person or group becomes a primary vehicle for that force or gestalt of consciousness that carries out that quality of mind, and then demonstrates that quality of thought into the physical realm. At this time, whatever force we become identified with, we will become fixed with and potentially consubstantial. Our elemental body will undergo forms of alchemical change, which relate to our consciousness shift either ascending or descending. If our mind is identified with the imposter spirit, our body will become consubstantial with it and embody that force. This will harden our heart and close our mind. If our mind is identified with our inner Christ spirit, the body will become consubstantial with that and purify and cleanse itself to embody that force. This will soften our heart while opening our mind to higher consciousness and is the best alignment for our future timeline. Sanity versus insanity. The recent magnitude of stellar explosions and concentrated solar flare impacts to the magnetic field have consequences in the global brain and collective consciousness. Thus, impacting the individual human brain through a variety of factors that will either reorganize thoughts into coherently integrated patterns, sanity, or collapse thoughts into disjointed and fragmented chaos, insanity. This cycle is leading us to the choice point of holding sanity or insanity as thought forms, and we must choose. This state of mind we choose leads to personal patterns of energetic influence. Depending on our thought forms, we will either be protected or bombarded from the collective behaviors that are manifested from collective forces in the environment. Our personal state of mind will reflect how those collective forces of chaos impact us or not. Can you hold peace in the chaos? Sanity is defined as remaining mentally open and mentally flexible, while choosing spiritually healthy behaviors, thoughts and attitudes. Insanity is defined as shutting down into robotic and mentally rigid beliefs of spiritually abusive behaviors, thoughts and attitudes. Mental rigidity leads to mental breakdowns and nervous system damage that will manifest into a variety of levels of dissociation, which potentially lead to psychotic break. Psychotic break is created from extreme traumatic stress or pain placed on the body, brain and nervous system. Through recent change in the law of structure, during the bifurcation of time, this roots group consciousness into aligning with various stations in the timeline. These stations make further conjunctions into specific corridors of time. This poses a great challenge on the surface of our planet as well as for all of humanity. The transformation in the instruction sets of DNA messaging made to the cell for long-term information storage is transpiring at the individual, collective and planetary levels of consciousness. Long-term information and cellular records are the equivalent of memories. All memories in which we identify as a human, with a race, with a religion, with a history, or whatever our accumulated beliefs may be, are undergoing alteration. In the functioning brain, to access short-term memory is in fact to access the accumulated behaviors that were recorded in a vast assembly of nerve cells and their associated molecules in the body. This time represents the true energetic reality behind the surface facade, making its contents known to us, simultaneously, as there is a stripping of the wheat from the chaff. Humanity is in a process of identifying the source of our values, ethics, and priorities in life. For real change to occur, people need to make different choices in familiar situations. Since what we value in life is represented in all our choices, this means people need to undergo a shift in values. That consciousness shift includes the re-education to human values rather than propagating anti-human values. For a values shift to occur in the world, people's worldview, self-context and myopic perception must change to include a larger overview. The awareness of the great fraud being perpetrated as the archontic deception through the negative alien agenda, NAA, is an integral part of finding that clarity that is required for the worldview to shift. This requires a consistent development of greater responsibility to the behaviors we choose when we interact with others and how we interact in group consciousness. In many cases, our personal responsibility lies with where we are required to place firm boundaries with people who do not recognize unethical or destructive behaviors and have no desire to stop these behaviors. For many, there is no more personal room for emotionally unstable people to have further access to us, when they do not want to evolve beyond those behaviors. This current shift that is happening in relationships may ignite old feelings of abandonment and betrayal, which are the core seed fears that all humans have. GSF behavior, responsibility. Accepting responsibility is being able to own your own emotional conflicts without blame, guilt or projection upon another person, by needing to make it their fault. We should not assume that we know anything about that person that can be judged for that which you cannot see or really know, as you have not walked in their shoes. When feeling upset, it is our responsibility to restore balance to our heart and aura, by lovingly holding boundaries without violating others' boundaries, by expecting them to resolve your conflicts. Be willing and open to learn what the real issues are that are generating the conflicts, which most of the time, are not what you think it is. Going deeper and reflecting on forgiveness of yourself and others, allowing time to emotionally process, neutralizes the tension or conflict. Learning how to become responsible and accepting self-responsibility is a major step of productive negative ego clearing. We are accountable to our actions and accept responsibility for our words, commitments and energies and how this impacts others. We are realistic and dependable, only committing to that which we are capable, and are genuinely sincere. We are aware of how our language and behavior impacts others, the environment, and act humbly. We are conscientious in everything that has our energy stem and recognize to create quality in our life and with appropriate value exchanges. Quality is a byproduct of our energetic responsibility and commitment to develop integrity in everything we do. Many people confuse responsibility and accountability as being one and same. In the practical reality, they are character traits that are more like two sides of the same coin. Being accountable has more to do than just giving up certain ego defense mechanism behaviors, such as negative beliefs, attitudes, and manipulations to get what you want. Some people think they are being accountable when they are just making an effort to behave or relate to others in a different way. This is to say, a person who just says what they think people want to hear is not being responsible nor accountable to their personal behavior. Being responsible is being willing to tell the truth authentically from the heart and by addressing personal conflicts and issues honestly and with kindness. One of the most common ego defense mechanisms used to avoid personal accountability or responsibility is to become upset, blaming others, assuming untruths, or to have an emotional tantrum. When a person goes into tantrum mode or has an outburst, obviously, they can no longer effectively handle the matter. They have gone unconscious. When a person goes unconscious and engages in tantrums, they are now fodder for dark and negative energies in the near vicinity. Many people that are not in control over their impulses or emotional reactions are dark portal people, and are used for jumping possessions. Emotional tantrums or derailing the topic at hand are common ego defenses to avoid facing the truth in the matter and to avoid any attention being placed upon the person's accountability for their actions. It's a diversion tactic made by the unconscious or conscious personality that refuses to take responsibility for their behaviors, actions, or the harm they cause others. This is done by simply tuning someone out, spin doctoring the truth to create confusion, or by having a mental conversation while someone is attempting to point out how you could have assumed greater responsibility for personal actions. People will only take responsibility for themselves when they decide they will, with an attitude adjustment. No one can force anyone else to make productive changes to be responsible for themselves when they are unwilling to face the core truth of the matter. Written by Renee. In Time Shift blog. On October 24, 2016.